at the beginning of a video what we're getting into so I can click away if I feel uncomfortable or I don't feel like I'm in the right headspace to engage in a video like that. Okay, with that being said, let's get into it. So, I first learned about Kundalini Katie or Guru Jagat when I was watching a docu-series on HBO, which is known as Max now. And girl, I love an HBO docu-series. Like, it's one of my favorite genres. I just think they do a really good job with investigative reporting. That being said, I did watch one recently about a YouTube family, a YouTube family controversy, and I found it to be very poorly done, and I think it was kind of trying to ride on the coattails of another YouTube family controversy. I can't remember the name of the woman right now, but it turned out that she was like committing child abuse. Anyway, it just kind of felt like a money grab and it was really dumb. I think the name of the documentary is An Update on Our Family, so I do not recommend that one. Okay, so I have my notes over here on my computer. So, Kundalini Katie, born as Katie Griggs. She was born in 1979. Does that make her a millennial or does that make her Gen X? I think that makes her possibly Gen X. She was born in Fort Collins, Colorado. And I've been to Fort Collins before, and I think they're kind of known for their mega churches and stuff. Anyway, she wasn't brought up religious. She was brought up by her mother and eventually her stepfather. She was brought up in like a very liberal, kind of hippie, crunchy family. And I think her mother was into like alternative spirituality, health and wellness, new age ideas that kind of developed in the 60s and 70s. Her mother was like a homesteader. She was a farmer. She was also a therapeutic clown, which I thought was really interesting. Like, I'm assuming she would go to hospitals and try to cheer up patients and stuff like that. So growing up, Katie was very outgoing, loud. She was always trying to be the center of attention. Her mother, in an interview, said that, like, one example would be she would get the whole family together and she would, like, tell them, okay, you have to stare at this flame for however many minutes, and, like, she would kind of try to lead these, like, spiritually inspired meetings with her parents, like, when she was very young. She was kind of like, almost like an aspiring actress. She was an entertainer, and in fact, I believe she did want to become an actress at one point. She used to like to play dress up and things like that. In an interview, her mother said that she was always trying to find herself, and that she dreamed of being an actor or a singer or a poet or something that involved herself in like the health and wellness sphere and in yoga. And around that time was like kind of the beginning of YouTube. So she was posting a lot of YouTube yoga videos, and she went by a couple different names. She wanted to be known as like Athena Day, or she changed her name to Katie Day, and then eventually she changed her name to Kundalini Katie, which seemed kind of like easier to digest for the masses. She ended up like finding Kundalini yoga. Sorry, I think I missed that. I wasn't specific enough. She found yoga, but she specifically found Kundalini yoga, which she felt like embraced spirituality as well as like body movements and breath work. So I had never heard of Kundalini yoga. I'm gonna adjust my leg here. I had never heard of Kundalini yoga. So it's characterized by intense breath work, and if you watch the documentary, you can see the way that they breathe is almost like hyperventilating. It's like shallow breaths, like over and over, to the point where you could feel like you're in a euphoric state. So a lot of intense breath work, repetitive poses, and eating vegetarian, mostly vegetarian, and wearing all white as well as wearing a turban. And I will say that most Kundalini yoga followers, at least at that time, were white women, well, white men and women. And the turbans were, we'll kind of get into this a little more, were taken from the Sikh religion because Kundalini yoga was founded by Yogi Bhajan, who was an imposter, a phony, a con man, but he took parts of the Sikh religion and infused it into Kundalini yoga, which he made up. Like it doesn't actually have history. He made it up. He made up Kundalini yoga. But anyway, yeah, so you have all these white people wearing all white and then wearing turbans. Talk about cultural appropriation, and it was actually like very damaging to the Sikh religion and the Sikh people in the United States because they're already a marginalized group. And then you have all these white people doing messed up stuff for money, power, greed, and kind of associating it with their religion. Anyway, I digress. So Kundalini yoga kind of had its moment in the spotlight, like in the 2010s. Kundalini Katie, also known as Yogi Jagat. I'm just gonna keep calling her Katie. She was based in LA, so she got this big following on YouTube, and then she decided to open an institute that would disseminate information, or no, that's not the right way to put it, that would host people who were looking to meditate and practice Kundalini yoga. Sorry, I had a little brain fog there. Yeah, so that was in LA where she opened it, and all these celebrities, including Russell Brand, Alicia Keys, Christy Turlington, super into this, and they were like touting it on their Instagram and social media, Facebook, which was big back then, I guess. I don't know. I kind of forgot. Anyway, so let's move away from Kundalini Katie for a minute and get into Yogi Bhajan, who is the one who started Kundalini Yoga. Also, Kundalini Katie, Yogi Bhajan, first of all, died in 2004. Katie claimed she got her name, Yogi Jagat, from Yogi Bhajan, but sources say otherwise. Sources say that she actually paid $40 on a website and was given that name. So anyway, okay, so Yogi Bhajan created Kundalini Yoga in the 1960s. His original name was Harbhajan Singh Khalsa, which I'm probably saying totally incorrectly. But he was a former U.S. Customs agent and immigrated from India to the United States. So he was just a customs agent, and then he somehow tricked everyone into becoming a spiritual cult leader. So he had taken elements of Sikhism, Hinduism, and Buddhism and kind of infused a new age aesthetic as well as quote-unquote futuristic techno jargon, which made it so because he used ancient religions or religions that are still being used now but have history that's very, very deep rooted in Indic culture, because he did that and mixed it with new age wellness and all that stuff, it became something that a lot of people in LA and those kind of places, it made it really attractive to them because they were looking for something that was alternate to mainstream religion, and this seemed perfect for them. So he ended up turning the Kundalini Yoga into a multi-million-dollar empire that also included, this is crazy to me, a private security firm that's used by the US government and ICE today. He also created the Yogi tea brand, and I find this kind of interesting actually, as Kundalini Yoga was becoming bigger in the 70s, as he was kind of just getting a foothold, he opened a vegetarian restaurant. And if you know anything about cults from that era, they always start with some kind of vegetarian restaurant or a farm that sells food at the local farmer's market or whatever. It's just interesting. So as we kind of know, in a lot of cults, they'll use body movement and breath work to manipulate the minds of their worshippers. And scientific studies have shown the benefit of chanting mantras and the highs that are experienced from intensive breath work. So also the breath work is supposed to help recovering addicts. So a lot of people actually were helped by Kundalini Yoga and the Rama Institute. But of course, for those who were helped, there's also those who were harmed, and the help does not outweigh the harm, in my opinion, and I think in many people's opinions. So Yogi Bhajan kind of made himself as the god, quote unquote god of the group, So let's kind of get into the big controversies, much of which came to light in 2020 when Pamela Tyson published her memoir called Remka, White Bird in a Golden Cage, My Life with Yogi Bhajan. So she was one of Yogi Bhajan's secretaries, and ended up being abused by him physically and sexually, mentally, psychically. She, in her book, she came with allegations, including but not limited to sexual battery, rape, fraud, and child abuse. So, I had never heard of this person, but their name is B. Schofield, and they are a cult kind of expert, and they write about cults in the New York Times, Rolling Stone, People Magazine, Netflix, and also contributed to this documentary. So they wrote a great article, or a very informative article about Yogi Bhajan, and I'm going to link it in the not the bio, the description. Sorry. So anyway, Tyson, who wrote the memoir and was Bhajan's secretary, worked for Bhajan for nearly 15 years and became a prominent figure in the organization. She brought a lawsuit against him, and in the lawsuits, she said that he demanded that she take a part in having sex with other women and to coordinate orgies with them. She kind of begged him to stop with the sexual advances and wanted to just be like his devotee and his secretary. But he wouldn't have any of that, and she says that she naively believed that her spirituality would protect her from getting pregnant. But that did not happen. She did end up getting pregnant, and she was forced to have an abortion where she almost died. There are other claims brought forth, one by Katie Felt, who also was groomed. She started being groomed when she was a teenager to become one of his secretaries in the same manner. Sorry, I won't get into like the details because they're pretty gruesome. But she also says that her sister, who was high up in the organization, helped Bhajan with these horrible things that he did to her, which is like the ultimate betrayal, to have your sister take part in something like that. So, Yogi Bhajan, horrible guy, he also held the belief that if you were raped, then it was your fault, and like, I won't go into that any further, but he would give lectures with that being the thesis statement. Many of his followers now come forth and to say that he was a man who used anything and everything he could to exploit, abuse, control, and dominate the very people who devoted their lives to him. So, Bhajan was married multiple times, and he claimed to be celibate, but he was sexually abusing his followers. He made his followers become vegetarians, but really he had this insane collection of ivory and furs. So some of his other crimes and misconduct, and then we'll get back to Katie, include he was involved with several criminal operations, including smuggling 20 tons of marijuana and weapons from charging people for jewelry, just like normal, like gang, like mobster almost stuff. He had millions of dollars in precious jewels and gems, had the largest collection of ivory in New Mexico, as well as furs, like we talked about. He owned nearly 20 luxury cars, and he made millions of dollars off of his enterprise. He also coerced, this is really insane, like they spent a lot of time on this in the documentary, but he coerced his followers to send their children away for school to India, to like one of his special centers, and the kids there were abused physically, sexually, emotionally. They wanted to come home, but their parents were like so entranced by Yogi Bhajan saying that this was what was best for the children that like their parents were like, no, you have to stay. So that's kind of also where the grooming started. He arranged over 500 marriages. He shamed and ostracized gay members of the organization. He groomed girls at a young age to be married off to his elite and wealthy friends, and apparently had some connections to the Jeffrey Epstein, like, stuff. He also had kind of disturbing ties to the government. God, my eyebrows are out of control. Anyway, there are pictures of him shaking Bill Clinton's hand, shaking George W. Bush's hand, and then he has his security company. It was awarded $3.5 billion in federal contracts since the year 2000, and its clients include the Department of Homeland Security, Department of Justice, and the Department of Defense. It started out in 1980 by Yogi Bhajan, but anyway, that's pretty wild. The crows are back. So, just gonna read this quote really quickly from the scholar Philip Deslip. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but he kind of describes the ethos that Bhajan tapped into. So he says, the late 60s were an incredible boom for Eastern spiritual teachers in the West. For someone like Yogi Bhajan, charismatic, physically imposing, and offering the secrets of mythical and dangerous Kundalini energy, Los Angeles in 1969 was the right place at the right time. So while Yogi Bhajan's initial plans in America were to sell items to hippies as part of an import-export business, he was a customs officer, remember? He quickly made yoga his business. There seemed to be no limits to his growth among hippies as a teacher in his own right, and with an almost franchise-like pattern, Yogi Bhajan offered an accelerated teacher training program consisting of only a few weeks, and then quickly dispatched his newly minted teachers across the country to open satellite ashrams called 3HO, and soon there were Kundalini yoga teachers in a rapidly expanding list of college towns and major cities. Okay, let's go back to Katie. I probably should have made this a two-part video, but that's okay, we're gonna keep going. So let's talk about the Rama Institute. Again, Kundalini Katie, saying she got her new guru name from Yogi Bhajan. Guru Jagat, which means teacher of the universe, but I'm going to keep calling her Katie, founded the Rama Institute in 2013. We talked about already what it was meant for. But around that time, I don't know if you remember, but there's this big push for quote-unquote girl boss. Like, a lot of millennials are gave her $20,000 to help start this. Okay, so here are the celebrities that made appearances at the Rama Institute. Alicia Keys, Kate Hudson, Demi Moore, Russell Brand, Katy Perry, Jennifer Aniston, Gwyneth Paltrow, and more, but those are the other ones I've written down. All kind of saying how wonderful this institute was. But Katie had employees there who she was barely paying minimum wage to. And there was an Instagram account that cropped up, maybe 2015, I don't know, called Rama Wrong, run by a couple of women who were employees and spiritual practitioners at the Rama Institute. Had been personal assistants and would post anonymous reports of Katie's bad behavior and a toxic workplace. So Katie was abusive, irrational, prone to lying, and she spent so much money publicly on jewels, turquoise, clothes, like food, everything, but then could barely pay her employees. And her employees were asked to file as independent contractors, depriving them of benefits like healthcare or like unemployment if they get fired. So Katie blamed this toxicity, quote unquote, as millennial sensitivity. So millennials being too sensitive of abuses in the workplace, which go on, be sensitive because you have to speak up if you're being abused in your workplace, okay? And she has a quote saying, "I am a straightforward shoot from the hip, East Coast kind of no bullshit person." Yeah, whatever, Katie. So, these people who were employed by her and employed by the Rama Institute were in kind of a tough spot because not only was their job, but it was also like their spirituality. So they had to please Katie and make sure that she wasn't upset and that they were doing everything right in order to also like be good spiritually. So it was like a cult within a cult, as they say. So later, Katie married a man named Tag Nam, who was a former student who was 20 years younger than her. He was raised in Arizona, and many people around this time noticed that Katie started to believe in conspiracy theories like QAnon and things like that. One time, she yelled at her stepfather for watching CNN because she believed they were part of Pizzagate and talking about the deep state. And no offense to anyone who believes in that out there, but I don't really. She refused to get the COVID vaccine, which like a lot of people did. And then she held like maskless classes in defiance of California's mask ordinance. And like thinking back to that time, remember how crazy it was, and to go against that kind of stuff was pretty out there. But her mother was like, "This isn't how I raised her. Like, I raised her in a liberal home." She also had an employee that called the Black Lives Matter protesters cockroaches, and she agreed with them. She also believed in a galactic federation of aliens that are impacting world events, which, like, maybe, I don't know, just kidding. She said the COVID-19 pandemic was planned, and she had a podcast where she invited on a guy who was a public Holocaust denier named David Icke. Like, ew, gross. Also had someone on the was named Carrie Cassidy, who once said that The Matrix was a documentary. And that COVID-19 was activated by 5G networks. And then also had a rapper on named Young Pharaoh, who is known for being anti-Semitic. Okay, so that's Katie. Like, it seemed like she was really just kind of an opportunist who happened to be on YouTube at the right time when it was coming out, happened to be a girl boss at the right time, and happened to be in LA at the right time. But apparently there was kind of a puppet master behind all of this named Harishiwan. Harishiwan. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna say his name wrong. Harishiwan. He helped Katie run the institute, and apparently, well, okay, he was older, a lot older, and he had been practicing Kundalini yoga since 1975. And he was also a direct student of Bhajan, unlike Katie. So apparently Harishiwan found Katie because he was looking for a young, attractive white woman to open this institute for him. Because he couldn't really do it himself because he was an old white man and not many people wanted to follow an old white man. He needed like someone to speak for him. So not only was he an old white man, but he was also a felon. He had served 24 months in federal prison for mail and tax fraud. And apparently the scam was that he would send fraudulent invoices to companies for printer toner. Yeah, so he was just like a straight up con man. So anyway, he was like, I want to con more people using Kundalini yoga in the way that my direct teacher Yogi Bhajan taught me. So he found Katie to be the figurehead of that. So apparently Katie would like speak to him every morning in total privacy and come out of the conversations with revelations or direct orders. She would say, I just got a heavy download from Hari Shiwan, or he told me to do this, or he told me to do that. And also she apparently sent money regularly to him as a tribute. And some said there were regular payments of $3,333, which is a figure with like numerical significance. Also lump sums of $20,000. Okay, so that's the story of the Rama Institute and of Katie and kind of her rise to fame and then her downfall and everything that was like informing her decisions. And yeah, again, it just seemed like she was kind of right place, right time, or like wrong place, right time, or sorry, wrong place, wrong time, depending on how you look at it. So compared to Yogi Bhajan, Katie's involvement in all of this wasn't as damaging, but the fact that she knew, her and Arjuan knew about Yogi Bhajan's allegations, which were found to be true, of sexual assault, grooming, child abuse, mental abuse, manipulation, physical abuse, everything, never came out and talked about it and just kind of kept going along as if nothing was wrong because they wanted to keep making money, is despicable. So anyway, Katie died August 1st, 2021 at the age of 41, so really young. Her death was actually attributed to a pulmonary embolism, which occurred following the surgery. a surgery on her ankle, so she was in Germany, I believe, and she broke her ankle, and then she flew, which you're not supposed to do because you can get a blood clot, and that's exactly what happened. So in Hari Zhuan's eulogy, he said that Katie was going to return one day in the future, be reincarnated, and then he started holding regular classes again at the Rama Institute. He also created a camp called Camp Grace, which was supposed to be a woman's camp devoting to destroying the patriarchy, which, like, he was the leader of, like, the biggest, I don't know, the biggest proponent of being a patriarchal society, I guess, which was kind of insane. Also, many of her followers didn't believe that she was dead because she died of such, like, normal causes, and they were like, I won't believe it until I see the body. But the coroner definitely pronounced her dead for very normal human reasons. And a lot of people believed that she had ascended and not died, which kind of reminds me of another documentary. I keep talking about stuff that I can't remember, but I'm gonna look it up really quick. It reminds me of another documentary on HBO Max about a woman who would, like, drink silver, and Amy Carson. She would drink colloidal silver. That documentary is insanely disturbing. Maybe I'll do another video about that. But she would drink all this colloidal silver because she believed it had health benefits. So it's very similar to, like, the Guru Jagat or Kundalini Katie situation, but it was not like she created this religion on her own. It wasn't based on anything else. Okay, anyway, thank you guys so much for listening and stopping by, and check out the documentary. Check out the articles in my description as well. See you guys soon. Bye.